You think you know Sailor Moon, but you don't. It's been a very long time since I watched Sailor Moon. Oh my god, I feel so old. What do you think of when you think about the original 90s Sailor Moon anime? I can probably guess. So many people look at Sailor Moon in contrast to Dragon Ball Z as this fluffy, frilly show meant for girls. Nothing as action-packed or as badass, just transformations and sparkly attacks. But I wanted to make this video to celebrate the Sailor Moon I know. The show where I was able to appreciate all the good because of the bad. And when I say bad, I don't mean the show was bad. I mean like the lower, darker parts of it. The show that made me cry as someone that does not cry. The Sailor Moon anime that the super dedicated fans that watch Sailor Moon stars illegally fan-subbed. No. Sorry, I don't mean to call out the casuals who only watched it dubbed, but let's not kid ourselves that you didn't see Sailor Moon in its intended glory if you took the Deke route. Also, I just want to say that I took the Deke route too. It has a very special place in my heart, but you do understand Sailor Moon when you actually listen to the sub version, not the dub version, so let me just clear that. I'm not trying to be gatekeepy here. I love the Deke dub too. When we first are asked about Sailor Moon, we usually think of transformations, the upgrades, the entrances, the amazing poses, the romance, the Miraku romansu, if you will. The fact that Tuxedo Mask barely does anything, like most men in my life. The monsters of the day. The fact that Sailor Moon doesn't kill monsters, she usually heals them and changes them back. I want to share more of my favorite moments that all happen to be dark and dramatic moments that I just feel that most people forget when they see Sailor Moon merch in the windowsills of Tokyo Lifestyle or Hot Topic. Sailor Moon had a lot of darker moments that make you forget that you're watching a magical girl show. And what I mean by that is, to me, there are a lot of moments where the show transcends the magical girl genre. Not in the drastic way that Madoka or Yuki Yuna sets out to, but in humanizing or difficult moments that ground an otherwise standard monster of the day storyline. Sailor Moon had a lot of darker moments that make you forget that you're watching a magical girl show. And what I mean by that is, to me, there are a lot of moments where the show transcends the magical girl genre, not in the drastic way that Madoka or Yuki Yuna set out to, but in humanizing or difficult moments that ground an otherwise standard monster of the day storyline. How can we talk about how dark Sailor Moon is without discussing themes like death and sacrifice and betrayal? Obviously, the deaths had a little bit more fresh of an effect the very first time we saw it in the first season, near the end when they fight the Demon Sisters. Every single episode leading up to the final battle was decently vanilla, minus Malachite dying. It's expected for some enemies to die, even if they turn good. But watching Jupiter, the most powerful Inner Scout, killed first was such a bold choice that I'm sure stuck with Sailor Moon fans even to this day. And from there, I would imagine that it's just dread, knowing that each Inner Scout was going to be picked off one by one in the episode or two, and hopefully take down one of the sisters down as they went down, because that's how powerful they were. In my opinion, this was kind of the first time we were seeing the Guardians be truly vulnerable and limited. Remember when Sailor Mercury slaps Sailor Moon and promises Sailor Moon she won't die, only being able to disable their ability to use illusions? Or Sailor Venus, I think she blew herself up while in the scary inferno after saving Sailor Moon by the skin of her teeth. And then Sailor Mars. Yo, Sailor Mars is the real one. How could we forget the iconic moment where we assume she is dead when she and the last sister comes out of the rubble? And then Sailor Mars grabs her, says the loudest, most passionate, "Fire soul!" ever. You really get the sense that she's putting every single drop of her life she has left, despite how exhausted and near death she is, to incinerate the last sister to save her best friend. And Sailor Moon is just alone now, completely alone to face Queen Beryl, and forced to grow up so quickly. So many things must be running through her head, hating how weak she is, maybe empty from having nothing left to lose, wanting to run but knowing she can't after every single Guardian sacrificed themselves for her, accepting that she probably will not survive the fight herself. There's also the Doomtree arc, when Luna forces Usagi to remember her identity as Sailor Moon. This is truly a scene that is much more sad in the Japanese or New Viz dub. Usagi doesn't want to remember. She doesn't want to have to fight anymore. She doesn't want to remember seeing her friends dying one by one for her. She just wants to enjoy her youth as a ditzy teenager. Is that so much to ask? It's not, but she knows she has a responsibility to do it now that she remembers. If we all are honest with ourselves, will we really be excited to dedicate our lives to saving the world? If you do, please feel free to express your delusions of grandeur in the comments below. Madoka was really spot on implying that eventually we would all be tired of superheroes of some kind, and eventually be okay with seeing the world burn. Plus, if you don't remember, she wishes to go back to being a regular girl after defeating Queen Beryl and Mutali in Season 1. The tone of her voice, still exhausted but still wistful and positive, drives home our empathy for how much was sacrificed to save our world. This speech is really set up to make us think about how being a magical girl isn't the most romantic thing. What's beautiful about dying violently, potentially at the hands of a demon? Everyday life, like eating crepes, crushing on boys, and checking out dresses, is more beautiful than being able to shoot sparkles out of a wand. That type of life is what the Sailor Guardians died to protect. And now that the threat is gone, wouldn't it be nice if Usagi and her friends could have their childhoods back? They deserve that much at least. What about the Sailor Moon R movie? I would love to make a separate video of this, but the scene where Sailor Moon is drained of her life force, I think, this reads as a pretty hard-hitting and unique imagery for an anime like this. At that time, Sailor Moon has never been hurt or stuck in this position before. Just look at her positioning and how it looks like she's being crucified. I honestly think that this is one of the closest times she actually would die by an enemy's hand. And also how violently he grasped her crystal along with her girls, her tatas. I'm watching this and I'm like, this cannot be for kids. Is this a kid's show? If you don't see these scenes as traditionally violent, I would like to think that you can see how these scenes are violent in tone, at least. I can't be the only one to have had this imagery burned into my brain since seeing it when I was 10, 12, I don't remember. It's kind of like a large panel from a Junji Ito manga. It's like all the unsettling elements that make this movie really stand out above the other Sailor Moon movies. Not that I don't like them, but Sailor Moon R is just miles above the two of them. All right, so let's take a look at one of my favorite scenes of the entire Sailor Moon series that I wanted to make sure to include to make my point. So it's the end of Sailor Moon S, and Sailor Saturn is about to sacrifice herself to save the world. Sailor Moon wants to help, but Sailor Saturn warns her that she only would have been able to help if she could become Super Sailor Moon. But she can't because she sacrificed the Holy Grail to Mistress 9. Now I know that in the end that the power of friendship does help her transform, but I really want people to still look at this scene. It's very scary. This is depicted to be a much deeper and complicated despair on Sailor Moon's part than before when she faced Queen Beryl. Again, I would never have expected Sailor Moon to be driven to this level of desperation. By the end of S, you would think you know the series, but I felt proven wrong near the end of every episode. Props to Sailor Moon's Japanese voice actor. Just listen to Sailor Moon shrieking to transform into Sailor Moon, wishing for some way to transform into Super Sailor Moon so she can do something to help, so that maybe Sailor Saturn doesn't have to sacrifice her life for everyone. All the other times she was so sure she would be able to have some power to help and amend the situation. But this scene was really one of the first where she was visibly consumed by despair. The despair of having to do nothing and sacrifice someone else. Something that she told Haruka and Michiru that she would not do. Despair to the point where it turns into anger. This scene uses silence, the animation, the bleak background, the voice acting together in harmony. It just seared this scene into my mind. I love it so much. Now, obviously I'm biased, as we all are, because so many of us grew up watching the show. But the love I have for Sailor Moon only evolved after finally watching the series to the real ending with Sailor Galaxia on a totally legal platform. Honestly, one of the things I like about Sailor Moon in comparison to the Mahou Shoujo anime that have come after it is that it's a bright, girl-oriented show, but it's not made in a way that shies away from scary moments. The same way I sometimes feel like other magical girl shows and American media does. I've seen my fair share of other Mahou Shoujo shows like Shugo Chara, Lyrical Nanoha, Magical Do-Re-Mi and Tokyo Mew Mew, and also Futari wa Precure. And I've seen plenty of self-sacrifice and dark moments too, but I personally feel like they aren't done with the same gravitas and commitment that Sailor Moon has done it. Yes, like other magical girl shows, Sailor Moon has deaths that don't mean much in the long run, and has attacks that seem to be more powerful just on the idea of love and friendship, but somehow these feel more earned. Maybe I'm being an elitist, but maybe it was just something about the 90s? I don't know. Also, the fact that the Utena director also directed Sailor Moon for a time helped a lot, probably. Sailor Moon was created for young girls, but it wasn't leaning into it in the same gendered way that many studios are now. And the directions it went in really helped it, in my opinion, transcend the Mahou Shoujo genre. I'd like to think that is a subtle but big reason why it has survived as a cultural object for so long and will probably continue to. But yeah, next time someone downplays Sailor Moon, tell them they're wrong. I don't know if you can tell, but Sailor Moon is an extremely important anime to me. I always categorize it separately when someone asks me what my top 3 are. Like, I give them my top 3 and then I say Sailor Moon also, because it feels like it's just in a different tier of its own. It's not a higher tier per se, it's just that it has such a special place in my heart that it doesn't even need to be like on a top 3. And I feel this special connection with it, and I feel like it's formed so much of my identity in a positive way that I often worry that other people, even though that they also grew up with the show, that they might not have as deep and as analytical or a cerebral relationship to. Maybe I just haven't reached out to the right people. But looking back, this show taught me a lot as a kid, that nonviolent solutions should be sought out first, that being strong and gentle are not mutually exclusive, and that femininity is not weakness, despite what society would tell us. So yeah, that's my piece on Sailor Moon. I'm really happy that I finally am getting it done. I hope that you got something out of it. Yeah, I just honestly started getting a little bit irked when people remember Sailor Moon as this very surface level girly show. I think it's so much more than that. It's so special to me, and I hope that came through. I literally have been sitting on the script because I was so scared of sharing it. I think I sat on it for like maybe a good half a year, maybe? Yeah, I hope that this inspires you to rewatch these scenes, to not just remember the pretty transformations, even though I love them, but also the fact that there really was a lot of depth to it that, from what I understand, might have not even been in the manga. I really hope that you have a great day, and I really hope that the things that I put out make you think a little bit differently about stuff. Because that's really what I love doing, is making people see something differently and hopefully inspiring them to be more compassionately critical of the world that we live in. Yeah.